3 minutes ago, a decision was about to be signed that would have rewritten Camilla's power overnight until Prince William stepped in and stopped it cold. Not with a polite objection, with a hard, unmistakable refusal. Charles had chosen a royal patronage for Camilla that wasn't symbolic, it was strategic. A move designed to crown her influence without saying the word crown. But William saw the trap instantly. Because some appointments don't elevate a person, they redefine the monarchy. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. It happens in the kind of moment the public never sees, where the monarchy doesn't look like ceremony and smiles, it looks like a machine deciding which direction the country will be steered. William's intervention isn't dramatic in the obvious way. It's dramatic because it is final. A last-minute halt, delivered just before the appointment could become irreversible, just before a simple signature could transform into a permanent stain or a permanent victory, depending on which side of the palace you stand on. The patronage itself is framed as unusually powerful, the kind that reaches beyond ribbon cutting and speeches into influence, access, leverage. More political than ceremonial. That's why William doesn't treat it as a harmless gesture to his stepmother. He treats it as a structural shift, a quiet recalibration of who gets to shape the monarchy's voice while pretending nothing changed. Charles sees it differently, and that clash is where the tension turns poisonous. In Charles's mind, the appointment is unity made visible, a public statement that the family has moved forward, that the institution is mature enough to stop being haunted by its own history. But William sees the other side of that same coin. Legitimacy and backlash. He sees the fragile emotional contract with the public, the one built on memory, grief, and perception, and he senses how quickly it can snap when people feel forced to applaud something they never truly accepted. For William, the danger isn't a headline for a day, it's a narrative that hardens into a verdict for decades. He understands something Charles is still trying to outrun. Certain roles don't just grant status. They rewrite the moral hierarchy of the house. And once that hierarchy is rewritten, you don't simply reset it with good intentions. The palace panics because stopping a king's decision is unprecedented and dangerous, even if it happens behind closed doors. The staff feel it instantly, the shift from approval process to containment crisis. It's not just about protocol anymore, it's about authority. If William can block this, then it means the center of gravity is changing. It means the future is pushing back against the present. And for courtiers whose survival depends on knowing which power to serve, that uncertainty is terrifying. In that atmosphere, even silence becomes suspicious. Who knew this was coming? Who expected the confrontation? Who is now frantically rewriting their own position before they're caught standing on the wrong side? Because the early foreshadowing is the detail that makes everything darker, William didn't stumble into this. Someone in the inner circle tipped him off in advance. Someone saw the move forming and decided William needed to be there before it became official fact. That means there are fractures inside the system that Charles either doesn't see or refuses to acknowledge. It also means the patronage wasn't simply presented as a neutral decision. It was pushed, guided, timed. And once you suspect timing, you start suspecting strategy. William's refusal isn't just aimed at the appointment, it's aimed at the invisible hands that tried to make the appointment inevitable. And then comes the first cliffhanger, the one that turns private crisis into looming war. Camilla learns about the block and reacts in a way no one expected. Not panic, not public outrage. Something more controlled, more calculated, more revealing. A reaction that suggests she isn't shocked by resistance, she's insulted by it. Because in that instant, the palace realizes this wasn't a simple family disagreement over titles and duties. It was a test of dominance, a measurement of who can still bend the monarchy's future with a single decision and who can stop it. And once William blocks the appointment, the question isn't just why, it's who warned him. and what they knew about Camilla's real plan. At first glance, a royal patronage looks harmless: ribbons, speeches, charity photos. But this one wasn't that. This patronage came with access, influence, and proximity to the monarchy's most sensitive decisions. The kind of position that quietly controls who gets heard, who gets funded, and who gets protected. When William saw the name attached to it, he didn't just see Camilla. He saw a future where the palace's moral compass could be sold as modernization. Because the patronage Charles intended to grant wasn't a decorative assignment meant to fill a calendar, it was tethered to major funding and high-profile institutional connections, the kind of network that doesn't merely reflect power but manufactures it. Money doesn't just support causes in that world, it supports narratives. It decides which initiatives are presented as royal priorities, which voices are elevated, which voices are quietly sidelined, and which reputations get a protective halo from proximity alone. William understood that immediately. He understood how a patronage like this can become a lever that shifts the monarchy's posture without ever needing a formal announcement. One signature and suddenly Camilla wouldn't just represent the crown, she would help steer where the crown looks, who it listens to, and what it chooses to reward. And that's where the stakes climb. Because this patronage wasn't only tied to money, it provided direct influence over public messaging and ceremonial priorities. Not in the obvious way, not as a press secretary, but in the way a royal face can become the default spokesperson for a value system. If you control the patronage, you control the photo opportunities, the themes, the language the palace repeats until it becomes truth. You control which causes get the royal seal, which crises become urgent, and which controversies are softened by reframing them as compassion and progress. The palace's PR machine thrives on that kind of cover. And William could feel it already happening: the subtle choreography, the phrasing, the way certain advisors spoke as if the decision was inevitable, as if any resistance would look cruel, old-fashioned, even disloyal. That's why this wasn't simply about Camilla's role. It was about optics turning into authority, authority turning into permanence. It would place Camilla at the center of decisions that shape the monarchy's image, not by giving her a crown, but by giving her control over the moments that make the public feel a crown is deserved. William feared it because it resembled soft coronation power influence without official limits. Prestige without the accountability that usually comes with a formal title. It would allow the palace to present a shift in hierarchy, as if it were simply charity work, as if power can be disguised as kindness, and therefore cannot be questioned without looking heartless. And the deeper William looked, the more obvious it became that perception was already being actively managed around the appointment. The PR machine wasn't waiting to respond, it was building the runway before the plane even took off. Friendly briefs prepared in advance, language designed to make the patronage sound inevitable and noble. Carefully placed talking points emphasizing unity, service, and modernization, as if those words could drown out the older emotional realities the public still carries. William didn't fear the public being upset for a week. He feared the public deciding that the monarchy was deliberately reshaping its moral story, rewriting who deserves honor and who deserves distance under the cover of progress. Because once people believe the monarchy is performing sincerity rather than living it, belief collapses. And belief is the only thing that separates a royal institution from a well-dressed relic. The most dangerous part is what a warning emerges inside the palace the moment William blocks it. Once granted, it cannot be quietly taken back. Patronages aren't like invitations that can be rescinded without anyone noticing. They become identity. They become legacy. They become headlines that harden into public expectation. Remove it later, and you create humiliation and fury. Leave it, and you normalize a new center of influence. That's why William treated the appointment like a trap, a move that forces the monarchy into a future it may not be able to reverse without tearing itself apart. The choice becomes brutal: let the soft power crown Camilla in all but name, or stop it now, and trigger a private war that could spill into public view. But the real reason William panicked wasn't the role itself, it was the file Charles was shown right before he approved it. This is where the story turns darker. Because according to palace whispers, Charles didn't just approve Camilla's patronage out of affection, he was handed a briefing that made the appointment look necessary. A single document, delivered late, framed as urgent, and written in language that sounded like a warning. But William recognized the pattern instantly. The palace was steering Charles. And if Charles signed, he wouldn't just be supporting Camilla, he'd be validating a narrative built to corner him. It arrives hours before the appointment, like a quiet intrusion into the king's judgment, mysterious, perfectly timed, and presented with that dangerous palace tone that says, "This cannot wait." The briefing frames the patronage as stabilizing and essential for unity, as if unity is something that can be manufactured by placing the right name in the right role, regardless of what the public feels. The wording is careful, almost soothing, but William hears the threat hidden inside it. If Charles refuses, he risks looking divided. If he agrees, he risks looking manipulated. That's the trap. A decision that feels like duty is actually pressure wearing formal language. And William, who has watched the palace use language to shape reality his entire life, doesn't just dislike the briefing, he distrusts it. He suspects it's engineered or selectively edited, not necessarily filled with lies, but trimmed until only one conclusion remains possible. The internal conflict erupts behind the walls immediately. Not in shouting, but in subtle fractures, advisors divided over whether to proceed. Some insisting the appointment is necessary to show stability. Others quietly warning that stability forced too hard becomes rebellion. William's distrust grows with every sentence. Because the briefing doesn't read like a neutral assessment, it reads like an argument built to win. It doesn't explore options. It narrows them. It doesn't acknowledge risk. It frames risk as inevitable unless Camilla is elevated. And once William sees that pattern, he realizes the monarchy isn't simply making a choice, it's being guided toward an outcome by people who understand how to corner a king without ever appearing to challenge him. That's when William demands to know who authored the briefing, because authorship is accountability, and accountability is the one thing the palace tries hardest to keep vague. And once William demands the author's name, the palace reveals the one thing it never wanted him to discover: where the briefing actually came from. The palace likes to pretend decisions come from duty, but William discovers what insiders have whispered for years: Camilla doesn't move alone. She moves with a circle strategists, courtiers and quiet operators who know how to frame an outcome before the king even sees the question. The patronage wasn't a gift, it was a campaign. And the moment William blocks it, the circle doesn't retreat, it adapts. Because influence is never surrendered, it's redirected. A small group of aides is linked to planning the patronage push, and suddenly the earlier unity language feels less like principle and more like packaging. Camilla's allies frame everything as normal, routine, harmless, yet the timing betrays them. Because normal decisions don't require urgent late briefings and stealthy pressure. William doesn't confront the circle like a man looking for a fight. He confronts them like a man collecting proof, applying pressure through questions that tighten slowly, forcing contradictions to surface. And as the net draws in, Charles is shown trapped between love and authority, caught in the most humiliating position a monarch can face, needing to believe he is choosing freely while sensing, deep down, that the palace is shaping his choices for him. Sophie appears as a quiet stabilizer, sensing a looming fracture, because she understands what happens when a family disagreement becomes a constitutional hazard. She doesn't take sides loudly, she absorbs the panic, translates emotion into strategy, and tries to keep the palace from tipping into open war. But the most chilling twist arrives in a whisper from an insider who sees farther than the current crisis. This was only the first of 3 planned appointments. Not one move, but a sequence step by step, tightening influence until resistance becomes impossible. That's when William realizes blocking this patronage isn't just stopping a title. It's stopping a blueprint. And blueprints don't disappear just because the first attempt fails. They evolve, they reroute, they strike again from another angle. But William's next move doesn't target Camilla, it targets Charles. Because stopping the patronage means confronting the king's weakness. What happens when a prince stops a king? Not in public, but in principle. William's confrontation with Charles isn't a tantrum, it's a boundary. He tells his father the patronage would be seen as reward, not service, that it would inflame the very wounds the monarchy keeps trying to bury. And Charles, furious and wounded, pushes back with the one weapon he still has: authority. But William has something stronger: public perception. The argument doesn't feel like policy. It feels like years of unsaid grief finally finding words sharp enough to cut. William's voice carries the weight of everything the palace has demanded. He swallow loyalty without comfort, duty without softness, composure even when his own history is being rearranged in front of him. He delivers the ultimatum with cold clarity: if you do this, it will define your reign. Not as kindness, not as unity. As a statement the public will read as reward. Charles fires back that it's his right, his prerogative, his crown. And William doesn't deny the right, he attacks the risk. He warns that some decisions don't just create headlines, they create beliefs, and once the public forms a belief about what the monarchy values, it becomes almost impossible to reverse. Grief and loyalty collide in the space between them, because Charles isn't just a king in that moment, he's a father who refuses to be told he's weak. He pushes back with authority, because authority is the last shield he has against the humiliating truth William is forcing him to face: that the monarchy can't simply declare acceptance into existence. It has to earn it. William is brutal about it, not because he enjoys the conflict, but because he understands the stakes in a way the palace often refuses to admit. He doesn't argue about Camilla as a person. He argues about the symbolism that follows her like shadow. He tells Charles that the public doesn't separate titles from memory, and that the wounds the monarchy keeps trying to bury are still alive beneath the surface, waiting for one wrong move to tear open again. Behind the doors, staff panic about the constitutional optics of a divided leadership. Not because they care about feelings, but because division at that level turns the monarchy into a spectacle of instability. Phones go quiet, faces turn neutral. Everything becomes controlled, because in that system, emotion is treated like a threat. Sophie and key advisors urge calm, but calm can't survive an argument where both men believe they're defending the crown, one by asserting authority, the other by protecting perception. The tension escalates until it stops sounding like disagreement and starts sounding like fracture. And that's when the cliffhanger lands. Charles threatens to bypass William entirely, to proceed without him, to assert his will simply because he can. And when Charles threatens to bypass him, William reveals the one thing that changes everything: he has evidence the public would never forgive. William doesn't just argue. He produces a file briefing notes, internal warnings, and a timeline that suggests the patronage appointment would trigger a backlash the palace cannot control. He frames it as protection, but Charles hears it as threat. Because the file isn't only about Camilla, it's about what the monarchy promised the public, and what it can't afford to contradict now. And in that moment, the palace realizes William has become the gatekeeper. The contents hit like a quiet explosion, because they aren't emotional. They're clinical. They show warnings about public reaction and legitimacy consequences written long before this night, as if the institution has been aware of the risk for years, and simply hoped time would dissolve it. The file includes references to historic sensitivity and unresolved perception damage. Language that admits the wound isn't healed, it's managed. Charles is shaken, not because he's surprised the public can be harsh, but because the file forces him to confront how fragile acceptance still is, how quickly the monarchy's image can tip from respected to resented. And the danger isn't only that the backlash would be loud, it's that it would be moral. the kind of rejection that turns into long-term cynicism. Camilla's allies attempt to discredit the file and its authors immediately, because discrediting the messenger is easier than addressing the message. They call it outdated, biased, hysterical, overly cautious. But William doesn't present it like gossip. He presents it like a warning label on a dangerous substance. Ignore it if you want, but don't pretend you weren't told what would happen. Sophie quietly backs William, seeing the long-term danger with the calm of someone who understands the monarchy's true battlefield is trust, not tradition. And as the room tightens, another chilling implication surfaces. Someone suggests the file was suppressed for years, kept out of sight until it became useful, which means the palace hasn't just been managing public perception, it's been managing internal truth. But the most dangerous twist isn't what the file says, it's who buried it, and why it resurfaced now. When Camilla learns William stopped the patronage, she doesn't collapse, she recalculates. Because if she can't take the role publicly, she can take influence privately. The palace begins to feel her countermove, a shift in alliances, a shift in access, a shift in what Charles hears and from whom. And William realizes the truth too late. Blocking one appointment may have saved the monarchy today, but it may have triggered a quieter war tomorrow. The retaliation isn't loud enough to headline, which is exactly why it's effective. Camilla redirects strategy away from titles and toward proximity. Because in a palace, the strongest power isn't always the one announced, it's the one that controls the king's attention. Suddenly, Charles becomes a contested space, a living doorway everyone wants to stand closest to, because who controls his schedule controls his decisions, and who controls his decisions controls the future. William senses it in subtle disruptions that don't look like resistance but feel like it. Conversations he used to have easily now require layers of permission. Information arrives later than it should, and certain advisors seem to become indispensable overnight. Camilla doesn't need a patronage to shape the monarchy's tone. She needs access at the right time, the right whisper before a meeting, the right framing before a choice is even presented. William responds the only way he knows how: tightening discipline, locking down communication channels, pushing the palace machine to prioritize consistency over comfort. But that kind of internal clampdown has consequences, because the more tightly you hold the institution, the more it squeaks, and squeaks attract attention. Staff feel the pressure. Alliances shift again, not out of loyalty, but out of survival. Sophie becomes critical as mediator, not as a sentimental peacemaker, but as a stabilizer who understands the monarchy cannot afford an open fracture. She reads the room the way a strategist reads weather, knowing which tension can pass and which tension becomes a storm, and she starts quietly preventing total collapse by keeping key people talking, even when they want to retreat into camps. Then the outside world begins to change in ways that feel too fast to be coincidence. Press narratives start shifting suspiciously quickly, as if someone is feeding the story in controlled doses, framing William as stubborn, framing Charles as struggling, framing Camilla as unfairly targeted, depending on who benefits from which angle. The palace doesn't announce a leak, but it behaves like it expects one, and expectation is often the first confession. That's when the next danger arrives. A second patronage is quietly proposed under a different name, wrapped in softer language, positioned as routine, designed to slip past the very resistance William just mounted. It's a countermove, not a retreat, proof that the chess match didn't end when William blocked the first appointment. It simply moved to a board the public can't see. And just when William thinks he's contained the damage, a message arrives that proves someone is willing to burn everything to win. The palace ends the night with a message that feels like a threat wearing manners. A deal is floated. Stop blocking. Stop resisting. Stop making this a war, and in exchange, the monarchy will keep certain stories buried. But William knows what deals inside palaces really mean. Leverage. And then comes the final twist. Someone hints they're ready to leak the entire patronage battle to the public, framing William not as protector, but as rebel. The offer isn't framed as bribery, it's framed as peace. the kind of peace that requires one side to surrender first. Hush agreements, controlled narratives, quiet assurances that nothing will spill, nothing will escalate, nothing will embarrass the crown so long as William stops interfering. But the moment he reads it, he understands the trap. Accept the deal and he becomes complicit in secrecy, a future king already trained to bury truth when it's inconvenient. Reject it, and he risks chaos. Because chaos is exactly what the sender is threatening to unleash. William is forced into the brutal trade-off the monarchy always faces when it's cornered: transparency versus stability. Tell the truth, and risk destabilizing his father's reign. Protect stability and risk poisoning his own credibility before he even inherits the throne. Charles' authority is suddenly fragile in a way the palace cannot spin if the story leaks, because the public doesn't forgive weakness easily when it's paired with secrecy. And Camilla's role stays deliberately ambiguous: mastermind, participant, or symbol used by operators, because ambiguity protects the institution while still allowing a scapegoat if needed. The leak threat suggests another insider has their own agenda, someone willing to weaponize the conflict for power, revenge, or control of the narrative. And the most terrifying part is what William realizes at the end of the night. This isn't a single fight over a single appointment. It's a pattern. A new kind of internal warfare where every patronage is a proxy battle, every title a signal, every routine decision a test of who truly holds influence. Because in the royal family, silence is never permanent. It's just a pause before the next secret demands a price. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.